You know, in almost every complex organization, there's this hidden danger being built piece by piece, and it's nearly impossible to see until it's way too late. So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and investigate this invisible architecture of accumulated risk.
All right, let's dive right in. Right off the bat, the source material for this makes a really bold statement. Now, I know what you're probably thinking with all the recent headlines, but the author is crystal clear. This notebook is not about Boeing. And that might seem a little surprising, but trust me, it's a huge clue about where we're headed.
So, okay, if it's not about one single company, then what is it about? Well, it's about a universal pattern, something that can happen in any complex organization that's feeling the pressure. We're talking tech companies, hospitals, government agencies. Heck, it could be happening on that big project you're working on right now. This pattern is literally everywhere.
First things first, let's give this thing a name. Let's talk about the pattern of failure.
At the heart of this pattern is something called shortcut accumulation. Now, this isn't about one big catastrophic mistake, no way. It's about a series of small, seemingly harmless little shortcuts. Each one, on its own, probably feels like a smart, efficient decision at the time. But the problem is, they compound. They build on top of each other, creating this hidden, systemic risk that's just lurking right beneath the surface.
Okay, so if this risk is so well hidden, how on earth do you find it? Well, like any good detective, you have to look for clues. So let's uncover these telltale signs.
There are 4 really crucial signals to look for. First, the classic temporary fix that somehow becomes permanent. Come on, we've all seen that, right? The duct tape solution that's still there a year later. Second is when deadlines, not best practices, start dictating engineering decisions. This is where good enough starts to replace actually good. Third, and this one is super subtle, is when checking for risks is seen as a delay to the schedule. And finally, when the things you measure, your metrics, value speed over the health of the system itself. That's how you accidentally create a culture that rewards cutting corners.
Let's just zoom in on that third point for a second, because it is so important. Reframing risk as delay. This is a really dangerous shift in mindset. It's when essential safety checks or quality control steps are no longer seen as a vital part of making something great, but instead they're seen as these annoying obstacles that are just getting in the way of a deadline. If you see this happening, that is a massive red flag.
So, we've defined the pattern and we've found the clues. Now it's time for the core insight, the big revelation at the heart of this whole mystery.
Just think about this for a second. We take a shortcut because we think we're reducing a risk, right? The risk of missing a deadline, or maybe going over budget. But if these shortcuts don't actually get rid of the real risk, the underlying technical risk or safety risk, then where does it go?
And here's the answer. This is the whole key. In complex systems, shortcuts do not reduce risk. They relocate it. The risk doesn't just vanish into thin air, it just gets moved, usually somewhere you can't see it.
This is the crucial mental flip we have to make. We all assume that taking a shortcut reduces or eliminates risk, but the reality is that it simply relocates that risk. It just kicks the can down the road for someone else to deal with later. So, what are the consequences of relocating all this risk over and over again? Well, eventually it leads to the inevitable collapse. Here's exactly how it happens.
The mechanism here is dangerously simple. So, step 1, a shortcut is taken. Seems fine. Step 2, that risk gets relocated, not removed, and it hides somewhere in the system. Step 3, with every new shortcut that's taken, more and more risk gets relocated, accumulating silently, invisibly. And then you get to step 4, failure appears. And because all that risk has been piling up in the dark, the failure seems totally sudden, shocking, and severe. But it wasn't sudden at all. It was built piece by piece, one shortcut at a time.
So how do we fight back against this invisible risk? Well, it all starts with asking the right question. Think of this as your personal tool for detection.
Before we get to the question itself, we have to understand this one critical distinction. There is a massive difference between truly simplifying a system, making it more elegant, more robust, easier to manage, and just speeding it up. One actually removes complexity, the other one just hides it.
And that brings us to the one question you need to start asking whenever a change is proposed. Does this decision simplify the system, or does it only speed it up? The answer to that question might just be what reveals the invisible architecture of risk being built right in front of you.